Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. Live from Las Vegas as we get ready for the one rental at a time event this Saturday and Sunday. I'm here early on a Tuesday because, it's Vegas. Why not? But you are being lied to about inflation. And this isn't just my opinion. This is proof. Like, I'm actually going to put some numbers on this. When people talk about, I hope inflation is less next year because things are too expensive. Inflation coming down doesn't mean things are going to cost less. It means they're going to go up slower. So the first thing is most people don't understand how inflation works. The goal is to have a 2 to 3% inflation rate, right? The government's in a lot of debt. It's easier to pay off debt in the future if the dollar loses value. So their target rate is to lose 2 to 3% of the value of the dollar to make it easier to pay off in the future. We got up to about 9% a couple of years ago. And I'm going to prove, and not a hypothetical, let me just say, this is what I think is happening. No, I did a litmus study. No, not a litmus study, a litmus test over the last year. The claim is that the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, there's several different versions of this. There's several different ways of tracking unemployment. There's several different ways of tracking inflation. And they use the one that matches their current narrative, that makes whatever they're trying to say sound better. Well, in the last couple of years, people have been trying to say, look how inflation's coming down. So inflation from last year to this year, people are saying is somewhere around 3%. Right? It changes every couple of months. You get a quarterly report, you get a monthly report. But part of this inflation report, is based on what's happening with rents. Are rents going up or are rents coming down? And you'll hear people say, well, large apartment complexes rent are coming down because there's been a lot of building, and really what's happening is remote work has allowed people to move farther out from the city where less of the big apartment buildings are. So what's happening with actual rents? They don't even use the data. For the inflation report, they don't even calculate what's going on with rents, but they use rent in the calculation. Instead of going, we were tracking rents, or they make a rentometer account to track historical rent data for the last year. They don't even do that. And going, here's what rents were last year, and here's what rents are this year. So rents have gone up, or rents have gone down, or rents have stayed flat. The data's there. Instead, they use owner's equivalent rent. Owner's equivalent rent. So they go to people who've never owned a rental, and they ask the question, what do you feel you could rent your place for? And as somebody who's invested for 10 years or longer and has reached financial freedom by buying rentals and never having to work again, I can tell you that it actually takes several weeks to figure out what area rents are going for. And here's how I performed my litmus test to prove that the 23 to 24 data, the beginning of last year to the beginning of this year, this is how far off it is. The claim is that the owner's equivalent rent is that people think they believe they could rent their house out for about 2% more now than what they could this time last year. You're going to see a lot of people saying rents have come down because somebody goes on Zillow and lists a rental and they go, I want to get $3,000. It should rent for $25,000, but they list it for $3,000. It was rented for $2,000 last year. They list it for a month or two and nobody rents it. So they lower the price to $27,000, $26,000, and somebody finally rents it at $26,000 or $25,000 where it should have started, but it came down from their wish list price. So you'll hear people say rents have come down, but have they re-signed a new lease at a lower amount? So in November of 2023, the end of 2023, I had a tenant who was a military member, got new orders. We terminated his lease. He moves away. I do a light rehab on the unit. I made a video in there. What was the video that I made in there? Can't remember. It's been a little over a year. I did a video in the unit so people could see what the end product of a freshly rehabbed to be turned rental would look like. I did a rent study. Now, to do a rent study, I don't call homeowners in my area and go, hey, what do you think you could rent your house for? Because I'm going to use a bad word you might not like. I'm not retarded. My mom had me tested. Test said I was, but I'm not. So I actually do a rent study. Now, a rent study has several data points. None of these data points can be used by themselves, right? I mentioned Rentometer. It's a website that tracks rents. And if there's enough rentals in your area, you can use it to say, in the last year, what have places rented for that they collected data on? So it might not be accurate. When from 2015 to 2020, it was fairly accurate because we had a kind of consistent market. After 2020, rents spiked so much that Rentometer couldn't keep up with historical data being accurate to current data. So it was a data point. The next thing you want to check is, what will the government pay for a rental in your area? Now, the government doesn't care about a garage, a carport, a hot tub, storage shed. It just goes, how many bedrooms are there? This is how much we'd pay. And it's based on what they've done a study on, saying this is the fair market rent for that area. So you can go to fair market rents and you can look at what the rent increase is from one year to another. And from 2023 to 2024, in my market, there was a significant increase. That doesn't mean rents go up at the beginning of 2024 because I'm the backwards landlord. Just did an interview on BiggerPockets where I talked about 10 things I do backwards. One of them is I want my leases to end in the winter. Most landlords, the majority, and I don't mean like 51%, I mean like probably 90%, want their leases to end in the summer. It's the industry standard. So if Section 8 rents in January of 2024 went up a lot in my area, I'd probably share my screen and do it, but my computer is on the Leaning Tower of Pisa and I will knock it over if I touch the keyboard. So I'm not going to do that today. From 2024 to 2025, there is not as big an increase in rents. So owner's equivalent rent, if some homeowner was smart enough to go, let me see what Section 8 will pay. That will help me make up my mind. They don't do that. They would go, last year there was a big increase. This year there's not a big increase. So this year there shouldn't be a big increase. Well, that's not how it works. Most of the leases for last year's tenants, Section 8 or not, renewed in the summer. So the rents went up halfway through the year because why would you rent to a civilian or a military member or someone who's retired for less than what the government would pay you? So I did my rent study in November of 2023, and I turned over a 2-bedroom, 1.5-bath unit. And I did a rent study. Section 8 would pay $1,987. I found rentals in the area for $2,150, $2,200. So I like to keep my rents a little bit below area average, even on a freshly turned unit. I like to maintain long tenancies. I don't like to have high tenant turnover, so I'm not looking to make every penny possible. I think if I find the area market and I go a little bit below that. So I rented the place out and I made videos on this for $1,950. I had about 30 people show up for the open house version and almost had to go battle royale to figure out who was going to get it. First guy shows up and he's like, I'll take it, and had already filled out an application because I had about 6 people filled out applications, 30 people came to look at it, 6 couples did applications. I don't make any money off the applications. It goes to Zillow. So that's a different story. And if you ever fill out an application on Zillow and you end up not getting the place, just pull your application, use it somewhere else. So I rent the place out in $1,950, plenty of demand. I got a happy tenant. He renewed his lease this year. I did not do a rent increase on him because I tend to do 5% every other year. And I did warn him, if rent control goes through, that'll become 7% every year. So I'll get richer. And it sucks if rent control goes through for the tenants. So this year, I had a tenant who bought a house. I also went to the property and did a video. You can see me holding up I call it a gas mask, but it's a construction mask. To go in and show the mess that they left. And then I did a video when I went there for lease signing. So this year I did the same rent study, same data points. And I missed a couple when I was talking earlier. So the first thing is go to Rentometer, see what they say you'll rent for. Go to Section 8, what's happening with fair market rents. And that's broken down. You can just Google fair market rents look up your state, look up your county, go into that. It might be, if you're very highly populated, it might be broken down by zip code. You can actually see in your local area, what will they pay? Then I also, since I live and my rentals are close to Joint Base Lewis McChord, I look up basic allowance for housing, BAH, for the military. And I go off of E5 as the standard of what I think rentals should go for in the area. If you live close to a college, a lot of people using their GI Bill will also get paid BAH at E5 level. So that's kind of the standard for that. And then you go to Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, Zillow, and apartments.com. Several different data points for a couple of weeks. Sounds like a lot of work, but you want to know you got your numbers right. You don't want to be the person that listed it for 3,000, lost a month's worth of rent when it was only worth 2,500. You want to know that right off the bat. So I looked for several weeks because you can't just take a snapshot. You can't go to Zillow and go, this is what's for rent. That's what the prices must be. I went to Zillow for a couple of weeks and I noted, okay, same number of units on this, since it's not Section 8, I actually checked same number of amenities. And I thought the comps that I'm finding were the last year were, 21, 22, 2150. So I went 1950, like I said, about 10% below. I'll keep a tenant in there for years. And I don't have high tenant turnover. That's my goal, not maximizing every penny. I'm the lazy investor, and I don't teach you how to make the most money. I teach you how to make work optional, never have to work again with the least amount of work. And that comes from low tenant turnover. So this year I do the study. I look at BAH in 2023 to 2024, 12% increase. This year, less than 3% increase because yay, government. So the military only got a small increase. Housing authority only got a small increase. But I look at the comps, and almost all of the comps are 22, 2350, 2250. So I listed it for 2095. So I would say I'm good with the math, but I sent this information to my friend Matt, the lumberjack landlord, who dropped out of high school in the 8th grade, dropped out of school in the 8th grade, who is good with math. And it tells me that, and he said it's either a 9.3, yeah, it's 9.3% increase to rents. So here's how you're being lied to about inflation. I do an actual rent study in my market. Rents went up over 9% because I'm below area average still. Owner equivalent rent, 2%. So when the CP lie, they take owner's equivalent rent and they say rents have gone up 2%. Now, yeah, there might be some areas where rents are flat. Or if you have large apartment complexes, maybe rents haven't gone up. But if you're comparing rents where most people want to rent, the small multifamily with their own yard, their own garage, their house, their ADU, whatever they're renting, in my market, they've gone up about 10%. And the inflation report says 2%, and you're just supposed to believe it. There are people who work in different industries. Like I was a driver for Wilcox Farms, and they did dairy. Now they just do eggs. If I still worked there, I would know what was happening with the price of eggs. And I would go to inflation and I would go, here's what's happening with it. Now I would take out a black swan event like an avian flu sweeping through and wiping out most of the chickens. I'm just talking about what happened with price of eggs, 2023 versus 2024 versus now. If you work like the uneducated economist, who's also going to be at the One Rental at a Time event, in the lumber industry, and you could take the data from the industry that you work in, that you are exposed to on a daily basis. I'm exposed to rentals on a daily basis. The CPI report takes the wrong data for rents and says, here's what's happening for inflation. So if the one industry that I'm currently involved in is off from 2% to over 9%, that's the gap. How far off are the real numbers? I don't have the answer. I was just telling you you're being lied to. That was the point of this intro to this video. The rest of this video, which will last about an hour, because I have a show to go to. Where are we going tonight?
Mad Apple.
To the Mad Apple. The point of the rest of this video is to answer your questions and hope to see some of you at the One Rental at a Time event this weekend. Howdy, everybody. Good to see you here. Denny's info is in the chat. It's the first comment from me. It's got the address. We will be there Wednesday and Thursday at midnight. And it's entirely possible that Millennial Mike might not make it, and that Matt, the lumberjack landlord, might not make it to the first night. Millennial Mike is having some car troubles in Louisiana. So we'll see how far he gets. Midnight, Jay. Howdy, Wayne, Tiffany, Jay, Anna K. Good to see you here. Brian, Chester, Ninja Vanish with the super chat. Much appreciated. Celebrate their third super chat on a live stream. I don't know if I believe that because I see your name pop up all the time. That's so weird. Maybe it's your third one from that IP address. Cashflow String, wish you could join us at Denny's, but not today. We're going to see you on the weekend, though. Small snack for the algorithm. Much appreciated. Say midnight Denny's meetup. There you go. Freedom Works. Mikey, good to see you here. How do you like your Trump hotel? Oh, I love pissing off my Uber driver. I don't have any of the good water here to make it an overshare time yet. David, howdy. Midnight Denny's meetup doesn't sound like it would be too sanitary. If you have to be sanitary everywhere you go, you might not want to buy rentals unless you're going to have all of the work hired out for someone else to do it. Still daylight out there. It's completely dark here on the East Coast and snowing. It was snowing in Washington, not today. It's raining today, but sunny in the 60s here. So smash the like button so an angel gets its wings. Thank you, Cashflow String. That is what happened. Then Larry Chong took back a message to make me lose sleep forever and ever and wonder what happened. Brian, we're on the East Coast journey. I'm in Virginia and have 5 inches of snow already. Nice. There you go. Larry Chong took back another message to make me lose sleep. It's got it out for me. Are you mad that I'm at the Trump Tower? Wealth Building Journey, National Harbor. Nice. Laura, howdy. Good to see you here. REI Jared, howdy. Howdy there in Las Vegas. Thank you, Larry. Cashflow String. Question. Have you had a tenant when their lease ended for the year go on month to month because they were anticipating moving? No, but yes. It's a great question, and it's a good strategy to be ready for it. So I go to all of my tenants when I'm signing a lease. This actually just blew the mind of this person who signed the lease in the last place. He's super young, has a good credit score, has a good job. I think it was the first place he's rented. But I said, as we were signing a lease, as I do with all my tenants, you should not be renting. Like this person was signing, and I don't know if I was clear enough in my intro to this video, but the 2 units were on the same property. They were identical units, just unit 3, unit 2. And the person was signing up the lease. I was saying, you shouldn't be renting, right? You know, your age, you have your job, you have a good credit score. You should be buying a house or a duplex or a fourplex like this one, living in one of the units, renting out the other ones, and you might not have to work the rest of your life. And I've said that to every tenant, every lease re-signing, every lease sign initial. And they kind of expect the conversation now whenever I do lease re-signings. And in that time now, I've had 3 people buy houses. None of them bought small multifamily. They all just bought a house, got on the property ladder, which is good. But I'm signing the lease, and every now and then I'll have a tenant, like the first one, this is where this idea came from, and then I did it with the ones last year. They say, yeah, we're probably going to be buying a house. We're signing a lease right now. How does that work? And I say, well, cool. Normally, your rent in this lease signing, the ones for last year we were renewing, I forget what their rent was, but the lease termination fee for me is always a couple $100 lower than the rent. So it's almost like another month's rent. It's usually about the price of the deposit. So if I have somebody dip out and break the lease without communication, deposit goes towards lease termination fee and then repairs. So let's hypothetical numbers now. Somebody's paying $2,000 a month in rent. So their lease termination fee is $1,800 normally. The reason I want to go year-long leases is because cash flow is freeing. I want to be bankable for the next property. And I've had lenders say, when we look at your finances, we want to see the majority, which means 51% or more of your leases have at least 3 months remaining. Very hard to show 3 months remaining on a lease if you have month-to-month tenants. So it's not in my best interest to do that. So when I talk to the tenants who do go, yeah, we're looking for a property, I connect them with my agent, I connect them with the lender. I don't even get a referral bonus. Although I have had the agent guy send me a gift card one time when somebody bought a place. So that's okay. But I go, here's the agent, here's the lender. And then what we do is right there in front of them, I just take my pen and I put a line through the $1,800 for the lease termination fee. And I say, let's make this $50. So if you buy a house this year to break your lease and leave here and move into your new place, because we both know that's what you're doing, $50 to break the lease. I've sent that and I've had lenders look at those leases. I've never had a lender come back. I've never had an underwriter come back and go, why is the lease termination fee $50? They don't care. They go, how many months are remaining on the lease? What's the amount? That's what matters. So if you have a tenant that wants to go month to month because they're probably going to be leaving, I would go, let's make it a 12-month lease with a $5 lease termination fee. So you're only here for 2 or 3 months. If they'll go 6 months, sure, if they know they're moving, but that's how I do it. And that you just tell them, look, we're making kind of a verbal agreement that when you're ready, you can just break the lease and you leave. This way I have a lease that I can show my lenders to be bankable. And we actually have a lease. It's very similar to month. And let me know how that works out for you. Wealth Building Journey gifted a month of financial freedom memberships to Kimosabe. Kimosabe, friend, right? Gifted membership to the Wealth Building Journey. Was gifted a membership by the Wealth Building Journey. Awesome. So Kimosabe, I'll call you friend in translation. Memberships we have twice a month at least. These ones are probably going to be, we did one last week, next Tuesday after the live stream. I'll be back from Vegas and then we'll do it. We get on, we all jump on Zoom together and we look at deals. We analyze a deal, left to right, top to bottom, in the order that we would do it. Takes 30 to 45 minutes to analyze a deal. And we're learning a skill that's going to take you about 90 seconds in practice. Like learning it takes a long time to understand all of the elements. It's super boring, but it's very useful. And it's the reason I don't do it on regular YouTube is I think it would kill my channel. Because what happens if you want to hurt somebody's YouTube channel? Click onto a video and click out. They got a good click-through rate, but they have a very short view duration. So what I don't want is to make videos that people leave because it's boring and not what they were looking for. I'm always trying to answer questions or share a topic like the intro to the video. But in those ones, it is cookie cutter. Let's look at the area. Physical aspects of the area. What are we looking at? Why are we checking for these things? Okay, now let's look at the property. Does it match our strategy? Is it rent by the room friendly? Is it going to be long tenant, low tenant turnover friendly? All of those things that we go through, flood zones, crime. How would we find out this stuff? We run the math, which everybody focuses on, but it takes this much of the time. And we don't practice the math until we get it right. We practice the math until we can't get it wrong, but it's this much of the equation on is this a good deal or not? And look forward to seeing you in one of the future ones. Since you're a member now, all previous ones are there. You can watch them all. Feel free. Jomo, howdy. Late Start Wealth, good evening. Leanne Vo, howdy. Can you talk about how to advertise and rent to a military family? Yes. So one of my strategies, because I'm 100% in real estate, right? I don't have any stocks. I don't have any crypto. I don't have any money in a retirement account. I'm 100% in real estate. So I diversify in two ways. One, my properties are spread out. I want more than 10 miles apart. And all but two of my properties are more than 10 miles apart. Close enough to drive to self-manage, but far enough to be next to different economic drivers. Base, port, college, hospital, Boeing, Amazon, whatever. Strip club. Anywhere where there's good jobs for people that can pay the rent. Sources of tenants. I said the strip club thing is a joke, but that's actually central to the rentals. So why do I know that? Don't you laugh at me? The second way that I diversify is I go 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, and 1/3 working or retired. Now, the problem is wanting 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working or retired. Well, how do you do it? What if you actually ran an ad that said, no military? How would that go for you? Or no Section 8. There are states that are trying to make it a requirement that you accept Section 8 tenants. And some of the courts are fighting it. Some of the people are fighting back saying, oh, it's a illegal search because they have to do an inspection of your property. So who knows which way that'll go. So to avoid the discrimination of saying only military can apply or only Section 8 can apply, I control how I advertise the almost exact same listing. So if I have a property and I'm trying to maintain, never perfect, but I'm trying to maintain about a third military Section 8 working and retired, and I have a tenant turnover and I want a Section 8 tenant, I'll do the listing on Zillow or through Hemlane. So it goes on Zillow, apartments.com, goes on 30 platforms. But when I do it, I take a link and I send it before it goes live to the housing authority. And I say, hey, can you share this with any of your clients who are waiting for a 3 or a 4 bedroom place to open? Because a lot of times they are. They're in a 2 bedroom waiting for a 3 bedroom, or in a 3 bedroom waiting for a 4 bedroom. So they'll be the first applicants. I'll put in the ad, housing authority voucher program approved. If I want a military occupant, now if I want a Section 8 tenant and someone else applies first, that's who I'm going to get. So like I said, it's not a perfect balance, but I'm trying for a third of each. I can't tell you what to do on your base or your installation close to you because they're all so different. But one thing that is consistent on almost every military installation is they have a MWR, morale, welfare, recreation. Right? This is I believe, a good program that's on every installation that helps a lot of the service members that are away from the home for the first time or away from their families. And there's a way to organize events on the bases. They don't handle housing. But since every installation has one of those, you can contact them and say, hey, I just moved next to Fort Hood. Who handles the housing advertisements for this base? I just moved to JBLM. Who handles the welcome families to the area briefings so that I can get my listings out? There'll be a housing authority for your base, but who knows what it is? It's a nonprofit. It could be an agency. It could be an appointed person. Different on every installation. But if you send it to them and you say, hey, can you share this with your circle? You're going to get a military application. I'll get a Section 8. I'll get a military. And then if you just list on all the platforms, you can get an, pretty much anybody type of application. Now, if you end up advertising near a base and you put things like military friendly, you're more likely to do it, to get that military member. If you are around a college and you're trying to get a military member who's like using their GI Bill or something, reach out to the college and ask them, hey, how do you guys handle your advertising for housing in the area? That's what I do. I reach out to the base, to the housing authority, or to the platforms to advertise. And you will never have a perfect ratio. All right, Jared, flying in tomorrow evening, 4 p.m. Vegas time. Denny is bound at midnight. I will see you there. R. Freeman, howdy. There's a bunch of snow forecast in your area next week. Was trying to visit DC for the first time. I went to DC one time. Was there for 2 months. Talk about culture shock. Brian, wanted to but can't make it work. My kids are with me this weekend. We would have absolutely welcomed your kids. Corby, evening misfits. Howdy. Ianville, where to advertise? And there you go. USO centers matters. There you go. JMC, howdy. Nice green screen. Do you think that's a green screen? How do I prove it's not a green screen? Take glasses. That's not a green screen. Although about 5 minutes before I went live, a freaking helicopter went by because we're on was the 51st floor or something? Like they were right there. I was like, oh, why am I not doing a video? Corby, I'll be in Thursday evening and we'll make the meetup that night. Awesome. Brian, no snow for next week, bunch today. Ninja Vanish. I checked my email receipts. I think I am forever stuck at 3. There you go. It's 11 degrees in Denver. It's like 60 something here in Vegas. Wayne Wong, see you all tomorrow night. Yes, you will. It'll be awesome. Orange Truck, howdy. How many of your rentals have you lived in, and would you have done more if you could do it over again? I have house hacked 3 times, so I've lived in 4. I owned a house before I was an investor. And to start investing, I moved out of the house into an apartment for 2 years and rented the house out to get rental income on my tax returns to get around a bad debt to income ratio from debt I didn't know about until the divorce. So the house, does that count? I lived in it before it was a rental. After 2 years of living in the apartment, I purchased a duplex. I lived in the duplex for about 7-ish years. And then I bought a fourplex. After the fourplex, so I bought some properties in between. And when I retired in 2022, in 23, I bought a duplex that I'm currently house hacking because it's on the water, walking distance to the ferries to go to Seattle if I ever feel stupid. But it's where I wanted to retire. And so when I'm traveling, I'm house hacking now in retirement. So when I spend 2 months in Portugal or planning on a couple months in Thailand, if my brother can get his health stuff figured out, he loves it when I share stuff like that about him. Oh, I should share the vasectomy story. Oh, I should totally. No, not yet. I'm house hacking a duplex so that when I'm traveling, there's somebody living on my property. If there's a water incident, if there's a freeze incident, if there's an Amazon package that gets delivered on the wrong day, there is somebody there that can help. So would I have done it more? So this is a weird thing. If I could say this without seeming like I'm just being sarcastic, because I want it to actually help. When people say, if you could go back, what would you do different? Right? That question is pretty common because they want to know, really what you want to know is, if you were starting today, what should I do to have a better next few years, right? That's the core of the question. But the way to find out is, if you know what you know now, because I can find out what you know now, and instead of starting then, what would you do different? Looking back, since what I did to me is better than winning the lottery, I never have to work again. I was talking with Chesela today. I'm never supposed to mention her name. And I said, imagine if we spent all of the money that you have and I spent all the money that I have, and we were just broke. With the rentals that we have, the rentals you have, the rentals I have, we just have to wait a month to have 10 grand or so sitting in the bank each. And off to La La Land we go. Better than winning the lottery because it's repeatable. We could do this again. If we had to start over, it would probably take less than 10 years. I would still make a 10-year plan. It's a 10-year journey. I don't know if I would house hack more. I like the house hacks that I did. The duplex got me started. The fourplex doubled my cash flow. Not quite doubled my net worth, put me over $1 million in net worth. Then the house hack in retirement. Yeah, no, I think I would have done the 3 house hacks. Glad I bought the house before I was, so if you're not buying rentals yet, at least buy a house. After 10 or 15 or 20 years, there's very few scenarios where you have a Detroit, Michigan incident where you paid top dollar in the 90s and it went down to 5 grand for the next 50 years. Like it's really rare for that to happen. So I don't know that I would change anything. I see we have a super chat from BuzzTune. Anything you're doing differently, changing last year for Vegas? Well, last year I presented at the end with Millennial Mike and Lumberjack Landlord and Michael Zuber. And believe me, we're at this event because we want to help you. But I really looked forward to being on stage with my friends. Like I hang out with those guys every week, right? We might not be in person, but we're on Zoom for hours. So I just to be in person with them. That was my selfish. I enjoyed it. This year I'm presenting by myself. I have 2 main topics that I want to cover that I'm not revealing until we're there. But the first one will take probably 30 minutes. The next one will probably take 10 minutes. And then finish with questions. And questions can come up all the way through. I'm also giving away 3 Audible books because if you're familiar with my content at all, you understand that, how do I put this? In the Marines, I went to the desert and helped plant flowers. And while I was planting flowers, there were some loud noises near me. And so my memory doesn't work great. Is that the softest, most PC way to put that? And so every time when I'm doing a live presentation, I like to give away a book. It covers up the embarrassment of I absolutely forgot where I'm at and what I'm talking about. But I know what to go on next. Like I know what I'm talking about. I just have to remember what I'm talking about. And so in this case, when I'm presenting, every time I just flat out lose my train of thought, somebody pointed out I'm giving away 3 audiobooks. I have a couple of regular books to give away while I'm there too. But some people already have the regular book and you want the Audible. So I'm covering 2 topics, presenting by myself. That's the change for this year for me. Like start well for arriving Thursday. Plan to make the meetup that night. Awesome. Atlas, howdy. Is your entire Vegas trip tax deductible? So yes, because it's ongoing education for real estate. And yes, because I'm recording a video, which I couldn't do here unless I was here. So yes, it's tax deductible. My CPA has fought me a couple of times, like on cruises, is the whole cruise a write-off? Because when I take the cruise, if I didn't have a YouTube channel, but cruise wasn't a write-off against real estate. Going to Portugal for 2 months to study the real estate market. So here's the trick. Is Portugal a tax deduction? Against YouTube? Sure. Against real estate? An expense is supposed to be a deduction against the property that it had income on. So had I purchased in Portugal and created income, then the Portugal trip could have been a real estate write-off. I don't think the Portugal trip was much of a write-off versus rental income, which I still haven't paid any taxes on. Levered depreciation, I believe. Do you do the work to maximize those saved earnings or let it slide to maximize that? Hang on. A minimum, I believe. Do you do the work to maximize those saved earnings or let it slide? I do pretty much. I record everything I spend. I have never done a cost segregation study or done anything creative with taxes. If I get to the point where I start paying taxes, I might start reaching out to my CPA. And I see posts all the time. Saw one the other day. I have 3 rentals. When should I hire a CPA? Like 2 months before you closed on 1 rental, should I hire a CPA? Because there's like different types of depreciation, right? What is amortized? What is scheduled? What is bonus? I don't want to know. I want to hire somebody who does know. So I hire a pro to make sure it's done that. Freedom Works, soon to be at National Harbor also for CPAC. Nice. I'll pretend I know what CPAC is. The acronym's not coming to me. It's interesting. Sounds like most folks are flying in on Thursday. I think so. Not everybody is financially free yet. And I thought, I actually have my brother from California driving out too for a couple days. So, I mean, there's more reason for me to be here too, because I really want to see him. I thought I was going to be flying here from Thailand. So have I tried the Trump burger yet? I have not tried the Trump burger yet.
I can order one.
If we order one, I could show everybody what a Trump burger looks like. I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. We'll see. Freedom Works. So no, I haven't tried it yet. I hear they have really good valet for Tesla Cybertrucks, though. Freedom Works. When you were working, what was your average savings rate? Just your job income, not investments. Good question. I don't think I've ever calculated it. I know that the first year with a rental, I lost 6 grand on the rental. The next year I made 12 grand. Like that's how big the change goes when you start educating yourself. My goal with my saving rate was 100%. I hear so many people say I want a 10% or a 15 or a 20% savings rate. I wanted to live on rental income as soon as possible. That didn't mean I quit my job, right? So investing for about 7 years, I had reached $2,700 a month in cash flow. 6 years? Yeah, 6 years. So in 6 years, I started living on, now this is cash flow. I'm setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancies. So when I have to replace a water heater, it doesn't dip into me paying for my life. So in about 6 years, I pretty much flipped. In the first 5 years, I don't think I touched any rental income. But at about 5 to 6 years, I flipped over to where I was living on the rental income. to where at 6 years, I was saving 100% of W-2 income because I lived on way less than $2,700 a month. I was house hacking, paid off vehicles. I didn't start buying the stupid nice vehicles yet. The Corvette, the Raptor, all that stuff came later. So I was driving a 17-year-old Jeep and a 19-year-old Jeep Cherokee that I could work on and keep running barely. And so old vehicles paid off, house hacking, living for almost free. $2,700 a month was enough to live. So then I started tracking what my savings rate became was by 2020, as soon as I closed on the fourplex, I was saving about 60%. That's how much the change was. I was saving about 60%. So I was saving 100% of rental income and 60% of rental income. So to me, it didn't matter what the source of income was. It was, I want my life covered. And then everything above that was saved for the next investment. And then from 2018 to 2022, having never touched my job income, and in 2020, starting to save more of the rental income, I felt confident in 2022 when I walked away from the job, right? $2 million in golden handcuffs. Finally started making six figures at work because I was making $17 an hour when I started there in like 2010. So good job, good golden handcuffs. But for 4 years, I didn't have to touch my job income. And it was now four times what I was making or what I was needing to spend. I felt silly going to work. So I didn't look at the how much will I save for my W-2. It's how much do I need? Everything above that was saved, whatever it was. So I don't think I ever calculated that. Probably could go, what did I make? What should I spend? It's probably whiteboard that someday. But it was, when can I flip the switch to live off all the rental and continue to grow that? And after those 4 years, I walked away from the W-2. So I think when you start saving, your savings rate goal should be 100%. Because if you can't save 100% from your W-2, you still need it. Financial freedom doesn't happen until you get past that. Brian, howdy. I'm excited and a bit nervous. I started investing in October and I'm closing on my third property and 10th unit in March. Also put in an offer today for 8 more units. Thanks for the motivation. That is a microscopic amount of data on a macroscopic reality. It sounds like you're moving really quick. So congratulations on the closing. Do you have your feet under you yet? Are you confident in your level of tenant turnover, the amount of reserves that you have, how to handle maintenance, repairs, how to handle the systems to grow your portfolio is part of the things from this weekend, to grow your portfolio where it won't create so much work it interferes with your job. So sounds like you're doing awesome. I think you should, hopefully you watch financial firefighter Marcus Shiro, who emptied his retirement accounts and got 14 units in 2 years. And then he talks about, yeah, it was a bit quick and a bit overwhelming and some evictions and tenant turnovers at the same time made it kind of rough. It's absolutely possible to scale that fast. And maybe you have the bandwidth for it. I didn't. I got one property in 2 years and then one property in 2 years. So the first 4 years, about two places. Like that felt like a lot. And it felt like when I had that first tenant, it felt like I spent 20 hours a week managing one tenant. Now I spend about 2 hours a month managing 17 rental units because I'm house hacking the 18th. REI Jared with a bad joke. A dung beetle walks into a bar and asks, "Is this stool taken?" REI Jared, were you in the military, Jared? I forget, because in Desert Storm we had the dung beetle races, right? You draw the lines of dirt on the ground, put them down, and yeah, whatever it takes to be entertained, right? Mick, I'm going to be missing the Denny's. My girl had to fly to Omaha to congratulate her godmother on her first home purchase. Nice. The same as the event. We will be there next year. That's okay. We will look forward to seeing you there then. And congratulations. Freedom Works. I've stayed at every Trump hotel in the USA, and they are all to die for. Trump burgers are amazing. Trump steaks are heavens. Oh,
Yes, the mistake.
okay. All right. There. That was twist my arm. All right, Jared. 66 watching and only 24 likes. It's a third ratio. It's not terrible. At least I didn't hit a million dislikes like a Disney trailer. The guy had a stripper as a tenant for 5 years. She always said, when I was in the Marines, I roommated with my friend Adam, who's, if I'm ever taken out under questionable circumstances, I've been very clear. He did it. And we always had stripper roommates. They clean, pay everything on time. Uh, those are roommates, though. Wow, I was house hacking in the 90s. She always paid, but was complaining about rent increases over the years. It's just one more lap dance. Well, that right. If you work a corporate job over the years, your skills and experience, you climb the corporate ladder. In an entertainment industry where your income is tied to your looks that fade, I think rent increases would be counter to income increases. Angry capitalist. Howdy. Charles, howdy. Where are you sitting? I am sitting in Trump Tower, and that's Las Vegas, because I'm here for the one rental at a time event that Michael Zuber put together, and I'm very honored to be invited to it. And then my chat moved, which I appreciate. Robert Fernelli, howdy. Forgot you had a live and just finished up zip lining in the Grand Canyon. Can't wait for Denny's tomorrow night. Nice. How was the zip line? I've done a couple here in the US, and it's usually like a line. Zip lined in Thailand. It was a 6 hour experience. Like, yeah, Wi-Fi working good at Trump Tower. Good. It is very sad for Zuber the other day. He jumps through all the hoops to get on Grant Cardone's radar, to line up a call, to get a video out. It, like I was looking forward to watching the video, and then the internet connection was a problem. Dion wannabe, howdy. Planting flowers during two blanched optically tracked wire guided. Exactly. 12 live fires, 11 impacts. Do the math. It's 44. Launch, not during. There you go. Conservative. Oh, political action committee. Nice. So I have a sentence that can piss off the left and the right at the same time because I don't belong to either. You're both insane. Yes, I like Trump because he's not a politician. And I like closed borders. And I like low inflation. And I like men out of women's sports. And I love Doge, like all these things. But it doesn't make me a Republican because I have this sentence. Here's the sentence. Gonna piss off both sides. Let's watch if it goes from 77 people viewing to 10. There are only and exactly two genders and zero gods. See if that does it. I sent all my tax paperwork to Bob Langworthy and Main Bean Counters. I got a 7,200 paper loss on my rental. Good job, Chester. I sent all my stuff off. I keep anticipating. I have these rent increases. I haven't added to the debt. Last year, I carried forward a loss. The year before, I carried forward a loss. 6 figures of profit both years. I keep expecting I'm going to have to write a check one of these days. And I'm like, I'm going to throw a tax party. I'm going to throw a tax party. The first year I have to pay rental income taxes. That's when you're successful, I think, if you have leverage. Good job, Chester. Dennis, why the hell didn't I get notifications? Stupid technology. Yeah, it's frustrating. Howdy, y'all. Duplex Dave, good to see you. Andres Matos took back a message to make me lose sleep, wonder forever and ever. Jared, I was in the army, but joined after Desert Storm started. I ended up in Germany and then did the Bosnia thing. -20, not hot. Nice. I can't overshare yet. Nope. My trip to Bosnia was not self-induced. And it was in holding for 2 months. Freaking Dave Hartman. Howdy. -21 at the homestead this morning, to the desert tomorrow for some camping. Nice. Cody Davis with some nice backup here where you should be, Cody. Did you get it worked out with Mike to be a recurring guest? Angry capitalist. We did hermit crabs in Okinawa after alcohol was taken away from all Marines in the island. Oh, I can't imagine not having alcohol there. Oh. Habu sake, coiled snake in the It's like a tequila worm, but it's a whole freaking snake in there. 50 cents a shot or glass, basically. I mean, I scuba dove a lot while I was in Okinawa. Freaking Dave took back 2 messages because he likes to mess with me. Robert Fernelli. It's short one zip line for 30, lasts about 45 seconds, but great view. Oh, that's cool. Sounds fun. That's what it's been like here in the US, the zip lining I've done here. So if you go, I went to Thailand and zip lining. It was quite a ways out. Um, take a, it's like an Uber or a Lyft app that they have there. It's neither one of those. We took a tuk-tuk. That poor guy trying to get us to go up that hill for that long. He was fine because we basically rented him for the day. Uh, but yeah, no, it was like 6 hours because you zip line from one end of a mountain range to the other, several different elevation changes. Some are zip lines to platforms, some are zip line to like a spiderweb net. Uh, yeah, retire early because there ain't no way I'm doing this in my 70s. David and Dave, howdy. Pewmeister, howdy. I saw the Cardone interview, was definitely choppy, but good bits of info always. Yep, good. All right, Jared. Seems like Grant Cardone's internet, not Zuber's. The wife and I were wondering how someone with billions doesn't have great internet access. You never know where he's gonna be. CJ, Team Two Gender Zero Gods as well. There you go. Andre, say Trump burger is going to taste like made by a billionaire, but he's richer. Nice, because the other side didn't do that. The other side didn't raise $1 billion in a month. They both suck, both sides. Neither one of them care about you. We got Doge, go in there. First thing they're going to do. Look at all the stuff we're spending on LGBTQI plus whatever. Follow up to the next month. Look at all this money that Republicans are spending on the war machine. Let's cut into both. Let's chop both of those down. Sid, howdy. Looking forward to seeing you all this week. I have 3 properties, 4 doors in 3 years in Indiana. Feel like time to go bigger and buy a $1 million property in Phoenix, 4 to 8 doors. Feel like I am moving too slow. It does feel that way in the beginning. I want to do a video called Don't Do This. It's called The Stack. Brandon Turner talks about the stack, and he talks about it in a good way. But there's a mistake that people make. They go, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to buy a duplex. I'm going to buy a duplex. Okay, I had a couple of duplexes. Now I'm going to buy a fourplex. Well, I've got all this equity, right? I can go and buy a 10plex or a 20plex or whatever. Now, there are people like Cody that know how to do this, get their first deal with 30-year fixed rate debt. It's totally possible. But that's not what most people do. It's like saying, it is entirely possible to get married and be happy. I have never seen it. So for me, the stack was how many fixed rate debt rentals could I acquire to reach financial freedom? If the stack is, I got these small multifamilies, I got these houses, but I'm going to sell in 1031 into this adjustable rate, balloon payments, loan reevaluation periods, that'd be like winning the game and taking risk after. But it does feel slow in the beginning. That's why I said, even if I started today, it'd probably go faster, but I'd still make a 10-year plan. And the first, so starting today, zero. I get out, I got no job, I got no rentals. I have to get a job to become bankable, right? I'm the slow, boring, not sexy, lazy investor. I get a job, consistent income for 2 years, work on my credit to make sure it's above 700. I'd be going for more than that, but that'd be the goal. 2 years of consistent income, I'd buy a house hack, probably a house with an ADU. If I couldn't find a duplex, it made sense. And I might have to use that onion method they just talked about on BiggerPockets, where I talked about concentric circles. They just said you go out further until you find this rent to price equilibrium. And I'd find a house hack that made sense. I'd commute to work. I'd live in that for probably 2 years. I'd probably do the next house hack right then, maybe, unless I can save enough to buy a property again. So in 4 years, I'd still buy just 2 properties. It might go quicker, maybe, because I have some knowledge. After 5 years, I think is when it would really speed up. I'd have the rental income. I'd be making more money at whatever job I chose to go do. I'd have consistent income from that. I'd have consistent income from rentals. I'd be using the binder strategy. I'd have all of these things in place to still do it in 10 years and be confident that that was enough. Dion Waterby, if drinking alcohol damages short-term memory, just think what drinking alcohol does. That's freaking amazing. Like the level of the joke in that sentence. Thank you for that. That is amazing. I use the buffalo theory when it comes to alcohol, right? So you have all the buffalo before we deleted almost all of them, and you have the herds going, and you have the predators, the wolf packs outside of the buffalo herd, and they're looking for the slower, the weaker, the ones that aren't productive to the herd, and then they cull them away from the herd, and then they eat them. So alcohol kills brain cells. The slower, the weaker, makes the herd stronger. So I'm improving my mind. Buffalo theory. The tigre, El Tigre. Howdy. Stuck at work? I'm an engineer. It's funny. I realize how I'm willing to go learn about physics and electromagnetism to earn more money, but not about real estate to be fine. Nice. I learned about physics, not so much electromagnetism, so I could have conversations with my dad. He was like Matt. He was an eighth grade dropout. I think he went to the ninth grade, maybe, but he read a lot of books. So I would learn. I wouldn't read as much. I would go to the great lessons, the great lectures, audiobooks and it's presentations on how a star is formed, what level of materials can be formed in a star's creation, which goes up to iron 56, 120 higher. And so, how a battery's made, like basic physics stuff. So I could talk to my dad. It was great. I don't know anything about electromagnetism though, other than the MRI exists because we've tried to use them in space travel. So your medical technology advancement is because of people trying to go into space. Wealth building journey. Tiffin and Dave, do you have a solid dad joke for today? Uh-oh. Cody Davis. Yep, every Monday. Nice. Thoughts on recasting? I think uh, if interest rates never come down again, at some point it might make sense to recast. Do you have the 5, 10, 15, or $20,000 that they're going to want as a lump sum payment to do a recast? And are you looking for increased cash flow? Are you like me and you don't really want paid off properties? Because it doesn't make it get paid off any sooner. So I think it's a good strategy. I haven't used it. I thought about it. And then 2020 happened. And I was like, wow, I can refinance everything to 3% or less. And so refinance without recast. But it could be a good strategy. So I would absolutely consider it. Atlas, howdy. As always, thank you for sharing the successful life plan with others. And thank you for honoring your comments by responding to each. I hope all is well. I hope all is well with you too. Nice. I try to answer even the ones that end up getting blocked. I answer all of them. I have to block the ones that I answer that are rude because I don't want you guys seeing what I said to the rude person. You shouldn't know how dark I can go. Yes. Looking forward to it, BuzzTune. It's going to be great. Orange Truck. Thanks for answering my question earlier. You were dead on. It was definitely if you were in my shoes question. Perfect. Thank you. Currently building my next house. I was hesitant on renting out the home we live in, but why not? Have to start somewhere and can't beat that owner-occupied financing. That's the reason house hacking is so famous. Yeah, you reduce or eliminate your living expenses to a certain point, but you also get owner financing, lower down payment if you want it, best interest rate you can get. Wealth building journey. It's like George Carlin once said, which can apply to both political parties. It's a big club and you ain't in it. There you go. George Carlin had a lot of good statements. RE Travel. What percentage do you typically tip your handyman from Thumbtack? I don't know if it's a percentage. It's usually $50 or $100 depending on the size. Unless it goes over $1,000, then the tip could be bigger. I ask because I never used to tip handyman, but it seems some on Thumbtack expected. Is it a percentage? So in the early conversations, I indicate I am a tipper. I like to tip, but here's how it works. We set an expectation of when a project will be done, and we have a common sense expectation of the level of work that should be done. So if you meet the timeline, this is going to be the tip. And if the level of work is good enough, there's going to be a tip. And that also includes how does the customer feel about when the handyman was there. So if the handyman comes and the customer calls, real story, they call me, your handyman does really good work when he's sober. No tip and no rehire, right? So So if a job is between 50 and $500, I'll tip $50. If it's between 500 and $1,000, I'll tip $100. If it's job's more than $1,000, depends on how many days they were there. And if it's a big job, let's say, what was a big job? So I had the rehab downstairs, which I'm never doing again. Drywalling a whole place. All right. How long do you think it'll take? A week. Okay, sure. It probably took 4 days, but he said a week to be safe. Cool. If it's within this $4,000 fee, uh, $500 tip, but it goes down $100 every day after the seventh. Right? That's a kind of hypothetical, kind of close to what actually happened. So it's not quite a percentage. I like round numbers. So and the tip is is to stay on their radar. I'm not going to tip somebody if the customer didn't have if my the customer in my mind is the tenant. If they didn't have a good experience, if the work wasn't good, if they weren't done in time. So I'm not tipping for just because it's like you tip a server even if it has bad service because you know they're not making enough that the compensation package includes the tip. Handyman doesn't. Robert Fernelli, we have about -1 minute for the. I'm going to burn through these questions. If you were in growth mode, you were always growing too slow. Best time to retire was when you were born. Next is today. Next best is tomorrow. Yeah, it's always going to feel too slow. I love it. Pewmeister. Makes you feel better. I'm 3 years in this month and I have two properties, one single family and one fourplex. Duplex stay 5 years in now and 15 doors, and it's been a grind, but most of what I bought were fixer uppers. The stabilization phase is mostly over now. Thank God. And Dave, I told my girlfriend that she should acknowledge and embrace her mistake. So she looks me dead in the eye and says, I acknowledge you. And she gave me a hug.
Yeah.
Yes, very true. Do you send 1099s to your handyman? Depending on what they did, yes. Gray area sketchy stuff in the course or in the members only, you might get a slightly different answer with a little more detail. But yeah, if I wanted a tax write-off, I'm sending a 1099. Gray area sketchy stuff. Thank you all for hanging out. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you at the Midnight Denny's meetups or at the One Rental at a Time event or in Futureland. Have a week full of amazing. Let's go get a Trump steak.